everyone, Ivy Lee Gaming here, and today we're playing Dragonheir Silent Gods. For today's video, we're going to do another rare hero tier list, this time focusing on the Ice and Necrosis Elemental Synergy. Alright, so I already put out a video talking about fire and poison heroes. I figured kind of grouping them as a unit and a comparison is key because those are of the current elemental synergy, and at least for the majority of the gameplay up until otherworld exploration and still some of that, you really are going to be focusing around teams that have the two elements versus, or at least two, I should say, the two elements with at least 3 DPS of that element. But later on, you're going to be focusing one element only per team once you get really rolling. So trust me, you got plenty of work to do later on, but it will be easier. We have higher levels of Goblin to farm with Goblin 3 being added, so I don't think anyone's going to have an issue doing that if you're playing very actively. But yeah, I really like the idea of kind of grouping these guys together, especially for now, just because when you're comparing, like, which tank should I use, which DPS should I use, are any of these Frost heroes worth using with my other Frost epics or legendaries? Are these summoners worth using with my other summoner epics and legendaries? Those are the kind of conversations that we want to have and help you decide. Now, again, I want to put a disclaimer out. Most people don't like tier lists. I don't even like tier lists. It's more like, listen to the conversation, because it's not just a cut and dry, this person's better than this person. Sometimes there's a conditional reason, or sometimes someone is the top tier in one area of the game, and that's why they're up top, but they suck everywhere else, or that sometimes they need setup, etc. So we're going to kind of talk about those scenarios. So also, yeah, this is one person's opinion, mine, at the end of the day. Am I going to be right 100% of the time? No, I'm definitely not going to be right 100% of the time. And I am perfectly happy accepting that. So if you disagree or have strong opinions about certain heroes, definitely let me know in the comments. Just don't be a dick about it. That's all I ask. Don't be like, you're so stupid, you didn't know about this. How do you think this person... Yeah. People are ridiculous on the internet, especially in people's YouTube comments. I think you guys forget we're humans sometime, and we have, you know, emotions and a heart, and, you know, you don't pretend we're your sister. Pretend I'm your sister or your mother or your daughter, and talk to people with a little bit more respect sometimes. It actually cracks me up. But yeah, offends me obviously as well. So on that note, I really want to get into this. I'm just trying to give my honest opinion based on the characters I've played with, based on the kits I've read. Most of this is honestly just the kits I've read at the end of the day, because we haven't played with every single character. And this season, there's a ton of new characters added as well. So of course I haven't played with them yet. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this. So let's go ahead. All right, and let's just start off strong with Usha. Let's talk about our ice heroes and our frost type first. Now, frost is one of those things where it's a type, it's a hero type, and you really want multiple frost heroes to take advantage of it to full effect. But our girl Usha here is going to be great with or without other allies. She does put frost on by herself with her passive. Her battle skill does a shield based on her attack and attack speed up buff for her as well. And then she deals damage, which is in kind of like a 3 cube straight range that hits really hard with her ultimate, and that can do a ton of damage and wipe out a lot of enemies. And if the enemy is under frost, it's double the damage. So she can put up frost herself, but of course it'd be better if you put other frost characters with her. But I wouldn't let that deter you. I've seen plenty of successful teams, especially if you're just trying to progress in the early stages, with like Usha and Vorash and the Ice Adventurer as like the only ice people. Like, you don't even really need the frost to still make good use of her, but of course it's ideal. I mean, like, other frost heroes, of course, is what I meant by that. All right, let's see. We have Wilt next. Now, I don't think Wilt deserves too high of a category. He's fine at applying frost. He can do so in multiple skills, which is great. He also comes back to his ultimate pretty often because when he procs frost, he actually recharges his ultimate energy, which is good, but I think there's just some stronger frost heroes, so I wouldn't necessarily rate him as the top tier. But if you're looking for someone to boost Usha and keep the frost up more consistently, he's definitely a solid option. And if you don't have any other frost on your team, you can definitely use him. He's definitely not trash, you know. He's just a little bit more middle of the road kind of character compared to someone like Usha that's the top. All right, we have Vosge, however you want to say his name. He's kind of, I think, in line with Will. Like, maybe they deserve to be A's, but I don't know. I think there's just too many other stronger heroes in the game to make you consider building a Frost team or not, and you're not going to build a Frost team around those heroes. And I think if I put them up in the A category, you're like, oh, maybe I don't have Usha, but I have them. I should make a Frost team. I don't think that's the answer. They're more of like, who would you put if you have Usha or better Frost heroes and you're looking for one more to help support the team? So Voge, I really don't know how to say his name. I apologize. But he's pretty solid. He has a nice AoE. It's not a big range, but it hits hard. He also can apply frost with that AoE with a 100% chance to land it, so at least there's the consistency factor. He also has an accuracy accuracy bonus that he gives himself with his battle skill to make sure he can land that frost more easily. And also his passive allows him to give himself some extra attack as well. So he's got a nice little self boost, but he's not as much of a team enabler. Like, Wilt's gonna put up more frosts, I think, because every time he puts up frost, he recharges his ultimate energy, which means he comes back to his ultimate more often. But Voge does have a pretty solid ultimate with a 100% chance to land as long as you have accuracy. So these are a few of the frost people we're talking about. Frost needs accuracy to land. Any of those red debuffs need accuracy to land based on the enemy's resistance, so keep that in mind. Luckily, the game kind of tells you how much accuracy you need, so it does make it easy. All right, our last frost hero to talk about is Zethos, and I think he's probably the strongest one. I think he might deserve to be up here because he is quite a bit stronger. Although, again, you know what? Let's do this to make it more clear. I think I'm going to bump Wilt down to C because of his inconsistency. So, okay, Wilt has this battle skill where he attacks multiple times, chances to place frost, but it's like 60%. At least Voge has a guaranteed 100% chance to land with his ultimate, and Zethos has a 100% chance on his battle skill to land a frost as well. So I really think Zethos is the best option by far compared to these other two for applying frost to help enable an Usha. But I don't think he's worthy of being I'm good enough to focus around me, so I'm not going to put him up in A either. He is strong, but he doesn't bring too much. He doesn't bring really AoE damage, but he does bring a pretty good hit with his ultimate again, and battle skill both 100% chance when booked, of course, to apply frost, which is very valuable. And if you want your Usha to be the best she can be, you definitely want another frost person to maximize her damage capabilities. So now let's move on to our summon category, another DPS category between these two. So let's talk about Tio. So Tio is a very strong unit, especially as a rare, because he brings a 30% attack in all battles aura for the allies, which is the same one as the legendary heroes have, which is super, super rare. I don't think there's another rare in the game with the highest level attack percentage, unless I've just missed it throughout my clicks. He is very good. He also brings both a battle skill and an ultimate that are AoE damage, regardless of having a summon team or not. So I think he's totally viable to be used even without a bunch of summoners, just for the sake of his aura to boost your whole team damage, which is huge. Early game, end game, whenever. 30% attack is 30% attack. That's a lot. And his AoEs are going to really help you in something like Goblin as well. Now, he does do more damage the more summons can be sacrificed with his ultimate. So, of course, like Usha, while he's very strong, without others of his type, he's going to be much better if you do have others of his type as a summoner. Now, the next one, Korth. He is more, let me put him in between these two. He's more of a support than a DPS, but he's a support for summoners. So I'm still going to kind of put him with the DPS conversation because our summoners need some boosting, and it's all about the synergy within those types. So he actually can boost the attack and attack speed of your summoned units, which I think is pretty cool, especially if you have a team that's popping out a lot. That can really add up. So he's kind of one of those more dependent upon the synergies, I would say, versus just, I don't know, versus like being good on his own. You're not going to use Korth unless you're doing a summoner team. Like, he's a 100% only if you have a summon team. So keep that in mind. He's just not good as a necrotic person because he's only boosting summons. And he does put out a summon himself, but that summon lasts for 20 seconds, so it's actually pretty long. But really good supportive summoner. If you have someone, especially if you have certain heroes, maybe not necessarily the rares, but others that pump out a ton of extra skeletons or something, he's going to be really great to make everyone do more damage. So definitely consider him if you're looking for a little bit of a booster on your team. Although I still think most people are going to go just for Tio if you're working on a summoner team because of his aura alone. But if you have some of those legendaries, it might be fun to give Korth a try and see how much his supportive role as a summoner can help boost the whole team. Now, next we have Yulia. I feel like she's the better version of Korth. I feel like I maybe should put her even a little bit higher here, maybe. Like, I don't know. Maybe Tio deserves to be up here and Yulia deserves to be here. But Yulia has a interesting kit because her ultimate boosts attack and attack speed of allies and summon units. So it's not just summoners, it's not just summons, it's all allies. So they're a really great attack booster. Her ultimate's her battle skill's pretty good as well. And she does really support your team, but bring a little damage and summon units. She summons a skeleton every 5 basic attacks, and her battle skill counts as a basic attack. So, and she also has an attack speed aura in all battles, which is really helpful. I think, I don't know. All right, we're going to do this. My guy, Zethos is probably better than her if I want to rank them in order, just overall. But yeah, she can help boost your team, and she's definitely one you want to focus as much attack and attack speed on for sure if you can get that sort of thing going. Of course, all that is gear dependent, but if you get those sets with attack speed, her kit just revolves all around that. So if you want the most out of her or boosting someone like Tio and maybe some other summoners in your roster, you definitely want to focus attack speed. All right, now we have Vaska as well. So Vaska actually is kind of in line with Yulia, maybe a little bit better because he brings some AoE damage with the ultimate, which actually is like 730% attack for the multiplier, which is really great for a rare. So that can come in handy. Plus he does add a summon there with his battle skill. And he actually has a self-heal. When he or his summon do a damage to an enemy, simple enough, he heals based on his attack. So I think he's got a lot of self-sustain, and he might have some interesting uses in areas where you can't quite heal him or his summoners. Or, well, I guess you don't really need to heal his summons, but you can't quite heal him. Maybe it's a certain board where you have that spread out range, and he's out of range of your healer. Well, maybe he can self-sustain himself a little bit better and not rely on other healers as much. I think it's a pretty nice little utility there. But again, I don't think you would really Vaska, Yulia, or Korth. You're not going to use unless you have a summon team specifically, where again, Tio is the strongest one here. So that kind of sums up the summon types. But let's go ahead and move on to our other support slash DPS debuffer type units. All right, next we have Refe. So I actually think she's pretty strong. She's really strong because she actually does good damage on her ultimate, 700% damage. But her kit also revolves around Frozen, which is really good for if you need crowd control. But keep in mind, a lot of the bosses cannot take, or they're immune to crowd control effects, and Frozen is one of those. So some of her kit is not going to be as exciting for a boss battle. But with her ultimate damage in mind just overall, and her battle skill, I think she deserves a solid B, maybe an A, honestly. Maybe I'm not giving her enough love. She has a battle skill that's 100% chance when booked to land the big version of decrease attack. That's amazing to have on a battle skill, and something we need in a lot of battles. So she can actually pump out some serious damage herself as a DPS and provide the debuff of decrease attack penalty 2, which is really important, honestly, especially against bosses. I think she's a really great option for a Ice Necrotic synergy team. So I think she's maybe a bit underrated. I've heard a couple people mention her here and there, but she's definitely someone that I should probably try out if I get her on my free-to-play account, or maybe I already have her and I just haven't thought about using her. I really want Usha though, and I'm kind of waiting to see if that happens. But I need a team to fight the boss for, oh god, for like Fire Domain. Oh, that's a nightmare. So I need more Ice and Necrotic people. Maybe I need to consider using her. I think her kit sounds really strong, and even if you can't apply Frozen against bosses, you can probably use her everywhere else. And even still, against a boss, decrease attack or attack penalty is attack penalty. That's good against bosses, so it kind of makes her good everywhere. Alright, and the more I look at this, the more I have to move Korth down, because he's like a very strict, do not use this guy unless there's a summon team and you want to test the supportive side of things. But he's so dependent upon other summoners, he's impossible to use without a proper, well-built summon team, that I kind of think he deserves to be lower. I'm not sure if I'm going to put anybody in this D category that's below there in green, so I'm going to leave it cut out for now. But if I change my mind, we'll see. But I don't know. I think he's got amazing potential as a support, but I don't know if that's good enough. All right, sorry. Let's go back to Gulal now. Gulal. So he is better than I expected. I feel like he's someone I kind of forgot about. Maybe he deserves to be about here. Of course, I'm only keeping the super S tier, like God tier. Use them forever. Oh my god, everyone loves them type heroes that are going to use through the end game dungeons. So keep that in mind. Tio's kind of an in-between, I think, because he's still better as a summoner overall. But yeah, Gulal is actually really good to have the center. Even though he's Ice and listed as support, he's actually really good DPS. And he also has a summon. So even though he's not in the summoner category, he actually has a summon with his Vulture. And his ultimate does solid damage. And he has a 100% chance to land decrease attack penalty 2. So again, very good kit. I always thought he was kind of meh, and then I don't know, I feel like he was one of those that was a bit forgotten for a while. And I think his kit is really strong, especially if you're going to use an Ice and Necrotic team. If you're looking for if you're building a summoner team with someone like Tio, and you're looking for someone to pair in that team to bring extra decrease attack penalty 2, I always call it decrease attack from Raid. It's going to be hard not to. Still, 4 years of playing that game is in my brain. He's a solid option. He brings a summon, and yeah, I think he's pretty great overall. I probably should consider him if I decide to go anything with summoners. So Gushni here, he's another interesting debuff support type character. deciding where to put him's a little hard for me. I've been kind of debating. He has, I want to say he has potential. But does he? I don't know if his kit overall is interesting enough because it's too reliant upon the frozen debuff. Again, where yes, Refe is, but even without the frozen as part of her kit, I like her kit just as damage and the decreased attack. Where Gushni, like, only extends the duration of debuffs if the enemy is under frozen with his passive. And that's kind of meh. Like, they're not going to be very often that, well, there's some content, obviously, like Arena or, Arena Goblin, I guess, or just the wave clear and not the bosses for using frozen. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I feel like a debuff extension feels most valuable against a boss battle, like extend the poisons, extend decreased defense penalty, extend attack penalty. And if he can't do that, it really takes away from his value. Now, his battle skill is like a heal and increased defense. And then his ultimate is a big old smash with it based on attack and enlightenment, which I think is interesting though. Although I really don't like when they just throw in enlightenment out of nowhere with seemingly no reason. When you're already going to want to build someone, if you're building them for damage, you're probably going to want to build attack and crit rate and crit damage. And then, oh, we got enlightenment too. Oh, and we need accuracy to apply the control effect. Like, I feel like he's too complicated to have to build everything. And his kit's really weird. It's like, with the debuff extension with Frozen, with his little random heal and defense up for 1, I think the hero, I think it's just 1. It says an ally, but I think they mean the hero, or the hero, not the ally. And his ultimate just being this random attack and enlightenment, big ol' damage. I feel like he's just such a random, weird mishmash kit that they just threw things together. And I don't know how I would really fit him into a team. So I definitely don't think he deserves to be high tier. I just don't think he's going to synergize well with most situations. All right, next up, let's transition to our summoners. So we have Adri here. She is incredible. I'm going to put her up here with Tio. She is getting a lot of love from the community. I feel like I see her mentioned every day in my Discord chat or somewhere in a YouTube comment or something. People are loving this character. She has a great kit. So at first, it's not the most exciting sounding kit for Adri here. She is more so like, all right, you read her passive's cool, okay. She ignores resistance if the enemy is already under a debuff. She ignores 30 resistance, so it makes her easier to build with less accuracy compared to your other debuffers. If they're already placing some sort of debuff and then she can go ahead and apply hers, then she doesn't need as much accuracy, which can help you build her with other stuff that's more important, like skill haste and attack speed type things. She does have a battle skill that applies accuracy penalty as well. So again, making it a little bit easier to build some of your heroes, maybe needing less resistance, and she can easily apply that. But it's only the small version. But it's an okay battle skill. It hits 360% damage for just a battle skill, which is pretty solid overall. But it's really her ultimate that's fun. So this is a longer one. So instead of trying to memorize it, I wanted to make sure I read it correctly. But it's good. Ready for it? All right. Shoots 3 arrows at enemies. Each deals 280% attack as necrotic damage and reduces ultimate energy by 10%, with a 75% chance of inflicting recharge speed penalty. So yeah, it's like depleting turn meter if you play other games like Raid. She has a great ability where she hits 3 times, plus that damage is really solid. It's single target type character. Really good against bosses, though. Really good against bosses. Keep that in mind. Everything doesn't have to be AoE as long as you line them up properly against some of those annoying bosses that have the side things. But that is huge, and that can really help you with the recharge speed penalty as well. Some situations, the enemies may be immune to turn meter or control effects, or like energy or manipulation or control effects, I think they call it. I can't remember exactly the word for the energy one, like turn meter reduction, how they call it against bosses, I mean. But the recharging speed penalty is a debuff that can be placed on everybody. Now, the only negative, again, is it's 75%, not 100% chance to land. That's kind of a bummer, honestly. But she's someone that's so important to land that debuff. And if you are using her for that role of the debuff and the ultimate energy, you might actually use one of those artifacts that increases your chance to land your buffs or debuffs on your ultimate. There's some of those annoying seemingly terrible artifacts that I was really like, no one's ever going to use this. But I really feel like she'd be a perfect candidate. Give her a 100% chance to land recharging speed penalty. That's going to really be helpful for your fights. And I really hope that I get her on one of my accounts. I don't think I have her on either one. So I could actually play her and try to work in some synergy. But really great hero, and the community is loving her. All right, next up we have Eulor. I'm definitely going to give her a solid, like, this is not middle of the road, keep in mind. Think of it more like top, but not complete trash. No one, I don't think anyone is 100% trash so far that we really talked about. But Eulor here, she's solid. I don't know if she deserves to be quite up here because I think in so many cases, you're going to use other people over her. But she does have an accuracy in all battles. I think it's all battles. Let me double check. Yeah, 30 accuracy in all battles aura, which is really great in certain battles if you just know you need to pump your accuracy a little bit more, or you don't have another or a lead aura that can come in handy. She also heals with her passive every time she deals damage, so that's extra healing, which is huge, honestly. And then she deals damage with her battle skill and can dispel a buff from the enemy, which can come in handy in so many places. You know what? Maybe she really does deserve to be up here. I gotta give her a little more love than that. And her ultimate is a pretty solid damage. Nothing crazy, but it's gonna help. Where she also applies the big version of attack penalty too, which could allow you to build your heroes with, you know, less need for resistance against some of those really hard boss fights where they're applying a ton of debuffs. Like, maybe I'm underestimating her for something like, I don't know, like the flame domain, right? How many of us are annoyed by the flame domain, especially early on or on our challenge accounts? Here I've been on my, my Starlight Challenge account and having no luck figuring out a proper team. At least maybe it's just levels, gear, I don't know. Survivability is hard. And I'm spreading them out and everything for the flame domain, but maybe I just need to try to boost my resistance in a creative way. Use someone like Eulor to put accuracy penalty on the boss so it's easier to build resistance on some people and not have to take away from damage or other stats to do so. So I think she's actually pretty good. Like, I don't know, I was kind of thinking she was a little bit more mid-tier, but the more I think about her role for that, the more she's actually awesome. Although does she deserve... No. I'm gonna go back to where I first put her, because does she deserve to be in the same tier as like Tio and Adri? I don't think so. That would argue maybe Refe doesn't either, though. But I think Refe is maybe a little bit underrated. And yeah, anyway, we already talked about her. But Eulor, if you don't have Voresh to remove or prevent buffs from the enemy, and you need a little extra heal on the team, plus a little damage, I think she might be a pretty solid option, or a key for some people to get past some of these weird dungeons that we're all stuck on because of debuffs and cleansing and all the annoying stuff that goes along with that. Speaking of debuffs and cleansing, we have our next guy, Fitz. So now we're going into our defenders. Fitz is a top tier tank. He is necrotic, and well, he has this weird ability to take the debuffs from the enemy, the allies, and put them on himself. And then he randomly cleanses a debuff from himself every so often as well. So he's got this really cool skill that he's kind of a cleanser that dispels debuffs, but in a weird way, in like a hurt himself way. But then he protects himself at the same time. So it's a quirky kit, but he really does work if you're dealing with some of those annoying dungeons, like, again, Flame Domain or Grave of Rot, where there's a ton of debuffs. And while doing that, he does also give himself some heal and an increased defense buff to help protect himself dealing with all those debuffs along the way. So if he gets hit with a big old poison or burn or something, he actually can handle it. if he doesn't dispel everything, he can heal himself. And yeah, put up a buff to help protect himself as well. All right, then we have Edgar. I think Edgar unfortunately deserves to kind of be down here for the sake of tanks. There's just so many other options you would use instead, or you just go off affinity. He's sounds, on paper at least, extremely good for keeping himself alive. He's got all these shields, and he can protect himself pretty well, constantly shielding and doing a little bit of damage even based on HP, which is cool. His max HP and attack, which you wouldn't really build him with attack if he's your defender. So he might throw a little bit of extra damage to the mix as well, but he doesn't really do anything to help the team. And I feel like when it comes to a tank, you really want that utility that's not only just some dude to sit up there and take the damage and be the distraction, but you want someone that really helps the whole team, and he just doesn't provide that. All right, and I guess our first ice tank to talk about is 4-bit. Again, I see him used in some content for a while because he is our free hero at the end of the day. And if you're looking for some, actually, I'll put him here. If you're looking for some team synergy with the ice element, you get him for free. He has an aura for all allies, so at least there's that. And he does provide some crowd control. The knock-up and the stun can be helpful in wave clear or arena if you don't have many options, especially. And he does do some damage with his ultimate, although his damage is based on attack. And if you're building him as a tank, you're probably building him with HP, defense, and accuracy for the debuffs. You're not likely going to build him for attack. But if you want to try him for some damage and something like, you could have 2 builds. He might be someone that's a little bit valuable, so maybe doesn't quite deserve to be low, because he does have the value of, I guess, being able to be a damage dealer in Goblin if you switch him to an attack-based build, even with a little accuracy to control them if you need to. Although you don't really need to control them, let's be honest. They're not that hard to kill. Maybe in Goblin 3 when it's hard, sure. But he also is just a pretty basic tank otherwise with a little bit of crowd control. And again, that's not going to be great against bosses. And he doesn't do anything to help the team. So another one of those, like, I hate that he doesn't really do much to help the team. But at least I feel like he's better than Edgar, because instead of just being a tank that's hard to kill, he also provides some crowd control and has a little bit of damage if you switch him to an attack build for Goblin. All right, and our last tank on the list is Loris. I think he's a bit, maybe here. Oh boy. I'm going to put him kind of here in the middle. I think he is a bit better than 4-bit. Do I make myself smaller? You know what, I'll just block it for now, and I'll get myself out of the way later. Or I'll just get smaller. It's fine. I think he's better than 4-bit, but you're probably going to find better tank options. Like, if you have Fitz, even if you don't have necrotic stuff he doesn't matter. Necrotic and ice are the same synergy. You're just going to use Fitz over Loris, period. So I think that's one of the conversations to be had, honestly. And Loris does bring a 100% chance to land attack penalty 2 on his ultimate, so that's great. He also brings a little other crowd control with like the Frozen, like Refe and Gushni have. But he doesn't do much else to help the team, unfortunately. So he's kind of another one of those, not quite a team player, but good enough, and can definitely fulfill the role if you need a tank for the ice element and you don't have any others. Especially once we get into the section where you're gonna need all ice units if you start pushing that for your maximum damage and survivability in the higher stages once we get to Otherworld exploration. All right, and now we have Megan. I think Megan deserves an S. She was a bit underrated, honestly. I think people didn't give her much love in the Season 0 time period here. Oops, let me put up. I realized this whole time I got rid of my darn text at the top. It's fine. But yeah, we have Megan here, and she brings so much to the table that I think a lot of people just kind of underestimated her early on. I've heard some hate. I'm like, you don't realize how good Megan is, do you? And a big part of why Megan is good is she brings a little bit of everything as a support unit. Her passive, whenever she uses a skill, she dispels a defense penalty debuff, which might not sound like a big deal, but there are some bosses that do that. including the Vortex boss when you get to the higher stages. So if you're running into situations where you're getting the defense penalty debuff thrown at you, her passive is just going to keep taking that off allies, which is huge. Especially every time she uses her ultimate, she's also going to have a chance to dispel those debuffs, and it's just another added utility in making her a cleanser and a healer. So she heals and increases ultimate energy on her battle skill, but only to one enemy. I wish you could control the battle skill and always choose exactly what enemy, like manually, depending on the situation, but unfortunately we can't. But still, that's huge. Being able to constantly heal someone and increase ultimate energy means your allies are coming back to their ultimate more often, so really great support. And finally, ultimate is like arranged to all allies, not all, but sorry, arranged ally boost to give defense up and recovery over time. So that's a heal. Another way to add heal and extra protection for the team, making her a really great support option. Now, of course, we're getting more and more options for the sake of support, but honestly, when it comes to necrotic and ice, there's not a lot of healing and yeah, support, cleansing, not a lot of stuff going on besides some legendaries, of course. There's only a couple epics, so more than likely, if you are synergizing with necrotic and ice, Megan is going to be in your team. And don't be surprised if you use her in the highest stages. She's another one. Her and Usha, 100% saw them in many teams. I took screenshots to make sure of the stage 9 dungeons for the last season. So you know that they can hang. I know she can help for Guild Boss or Vortex. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good list. Debatable on a few of these whether or not you'd pull them up or down, and maybe one or two deserve to be a little into the next below the category. But I hope this was helpful. I hope this discussion was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.